All right. What's going on, everybody? Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, from realtors, lenders, builders, developers, residential or commercial, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Our very special guest and featured titan for today, Kayla Kallander. Hey, Kayla, I just want to give you a digital high five.
Hi. Awesome.
I think we got it. It was in the right spot. So, but all the way from Fargo, North Dakota. This is awesome.
Yeah, you know where North Dakota is at, right?
I do.
It's way away from Colorado. So.
It's okay. But we're right next to each other now for everybody to consume and enjoy. This is awesome. And Kayla, thank you so much for taking the time. It's an honor to have you on the show. I'm just really excited to dive in.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
For sure. Well, let's just start. Jump into the series of questions. Really, everybody get to know you a little bit better, who you are, what you do, why you do it. So let's just start with telling everybody a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Well, I'm Kayla Kallander. As Greg said, I'm in Fargo, North Dakota. Originally, I'm from Walhalla, which is about 3 hours north of Fargo.
Okay.
Pretty much in Canada. Let's be honest. They call it, Canada, but it's actually about 2 miles south. I'm from a tiny little town up there. So I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and we were born and raised on a farm. And our whole lives, we worked on the farm, and, I graduated with a class of 29 people. And after high school, I moved to Fargo, and I went to school at NDSU, go Bison, of course. Yeah. Have you heard of the Bison, Greg?
I haven't. I have not.
Someday you will. But went to NDSU, studied business, got my degree, and basically bought a house, got married, and rescued a couple pit bull mixes. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And I'm a little bit obsessed about.
and that those are fur babies is what I like to refer to them. And
oh, yes.
it's a part of our heart, and I totally get that. And that's a really cool, background into kind of who you are, where you're from, that sort of thing. Now, I want to tap into being the youngest because I'm also the youngest. So, we have a connection there. There's something.
We do.
It's we have a certain personality type that's registered towards us. I think we're go-getters, we're doers, and make it happen.
Yep.
So, I think
you got to keep up with the older siblings for sure.
I love that. So, Kayla, what was it about? Obviously, getting into the real estate world and getting involved in lending. What was your career path after graduating and all those things for you?
Well, it's funny. It started for me when I was 15, Greg. Our whole lives as kids, we were out on the farm. We were picking weeds. We were hoeing trees with my dad. I have my paycheck from when I was 5.5 years old still. I have it on my fridge. Yeah, my dad instilled such a great work ethic in all of us. And it's really crazy to say that my path actually started when I was 15. So when I was 15, I wanted a real job. I didn't want to be out in the fields getting dirty. I wanted to work at the diner. I wanted to work at the local Highway 32 diner. And I wanted to go apply, but they weren't hiring. And I was really bummed. It was like the cool place to work. It was probably the next day that I heard on the school announcements that they were hiring at the local bank for a student. So I thought, I can make copies and I can answer phones and, go through files, but it actually ended up being a customer service representative position. And as a 15-year-old, I interviewed and I got the job, and I'm so blessed to this day when I look back and think about it. But literally, I was on the front line. You walk into a bank and you're the first person people see. And so at a very young age, I had to figure out how to be a professional and keep confidentiality. And so when I look back, I actually worked all through high school. I went after college, I transferred locations in Fargo to that same bank, and I worked all through college. And what my last role was after about 7 years at that company was a mortgage loan originator.
Okay.
So I wore all these hats. I was in deposits, which is the complete opposite of lending. People were giving me money and saying, what can you give me for a rate? Well, the table flipped a bit when they're asking for money, but still asking what rate they'd get. So it was scary. I'll be honest, it was really scary because I hadn't had the experience, but they knew that I could network and talk to people. And ever since then, I've been in the industry.
Wow.
For me, though, after being in it for a year without having the background, I had to take a step back and say, you know what? I really need to know the basics and the fundamentals, because if I want to be selling a product and a service, I better know it. Why do we need these forms? Why do we ask for financials? So what I did is I actually went to a different bank and kind of took a step down as a mortgage processor.
Interesting.
So that's more behind the scenes, and did that for about a year or two, probably about 2 years it was. And I was a processor and a loan originator. So they had me doing a little bit of both worlds. So, Kayla, you're behind the scenes, but go out and talk to people too. So in 2017, I became a full-time loan originator. And I'm at TCF Home Loans, and I've been here since the end of 17 and have been doing it ever since. So the real long story around that is from farming to loan origination. So that's how I got here.
But I love that story, and especially because, what got you into the business, but then once you were in it, you took a step back and you were really learning and growing. And I think that's crucially important because so many people don't really understand their craft, and they don't understand the fundamentals and the basics. They leapfrog too far too fast. And I don't think it's the best case scenario for your knowledge and then for the consumer. So I applaud you for that. I mean, that's fantastic.
Thank you. And I didn't want to learn by getting burned. I didn't want to just be like, oh, you're just going to learn as you go. I really felt I needed that back end to succeed, because all it takes in this industry, and it, is one bad experience.
Right.
And, with social media, it takes one bad review, and I didn't want to learn it that way. So it took a step back, but it was for the best.
I love that. And then obviously look at your reputation and what you're doing in your community. And it's phenomenal. It's amazing. And that kind of speaks a testament into obviously what you've done and what you'll continue to do. I want to get into the next portion, which I think is really telling for everybody out there as far as why you do what you do, right? It's the why question. So Kayla, what motivates you, gets you excited every day out of the bed, really just to do what you do to the level you do it at?
It's such a great question, because if you really stop and ask, why do I do this? I think if you keep that front and center, it's going to make the stressful, crazy days just kind of calm down a bit. It's really going to propel you forward. We have those days where phones are ringing and it's crazy and we want to get to closing. But when you stop and think about your why, I feel like that always keeps me going. And my why is I really do feel we were put on this earth to find our talents and then give them away. So how can I, in mortgage lending, give my talents away? And for me, it's being an educator and helping somebody that, think about it. You buy cars, you buy couches, furniture, but when you buy a house, that is probably the biggest purchase you're ever going to make.
Agreed.
And it's emotional. You buy a house with your husband, it's your first house, or you raised your children there. And so you're selling that house and you're moving to a new one. And my job is to paint the picture for the client and take away that stress, that burden of financials and having to know the numbers. And they can focus on the pink colors or the moving truck or which kid gets which room. And so my job is to just be an educator and communicate. And I think any of my clients know, aside from right now, anybody that's calling me why I'm not answering, but I'm very quick to communicate, and because I know it's very emotional. And so my why is just give my talent a way of communicating and educating.
Wow. I really love that. And obviously that's extremely selfless when it comes down to that. And those are the biggest whys. And it comes down to really caring about the people that you're working with and knowing that it's not just a transaction, it's their life. And I love that you're mentioning that. It's truly caring and taking your craft to a higher level, setting a higher bar. Unfortunately, this is not the case. You guys are not all created equal. None of us are. right? And so it's just hard for the consumer to determine, what's right for them and what's better or what's worse. Just anybody who's watching or listening to this is the example here. So just take notes, bear in mind what's going on. This is the comparison. So, but Kayla, I love that. And I think that's extremely inspiring for a lot of people out there and understanding why you do what you do. I want to get into the next portion into this. And this is actually a crowd pleaser for this particular show because a lot of the viewers, subscribers, whether they're listening in podcast format or they're watching it live with us now on Facebook, it comes down to the advisory portion. People really want to know what the Titans are doing or have done to grow their business to scale. Right. So, if you could look back at your career thus far and pick or choose one or two things that you added to your business, took it from one level to the next, what's that look like for you?
For me, I realized that my business started to take off a lot more when people got to know Kayla, not just Kayla, the mortgage loan originator. Kayla, the girl that I know I can trust, that's fun, that communicates. For me, it was networking with realtors, builders, financial advisors, but getting together for coffee and not talking about work. It was having genuine conversations and where we'd maybe talk about our struggles in the business, or we talk about the kids, or of course my fur babies, but it was a lot of just people getting to know me because what I found was once they enjoyed and trusted Kayla, the person, the human, they had no problem putting clients in my hands. And once the clients were in my hands, same thing. Some of my best friends were my clients. I got to know them so well. And that's my goal is sometimes the people in your office they might not have anybody else to talk to that day. And when you can be there on a personal level too, I find that that's what's helped me, grow my business and keeps clients, here's Kayla's card, go talk to her. She's awesome. Like it's the best feeling in the world when you can do that.
Right. I love that you mentioned, the networking aspect just to start, with that at the beginning. I think that more of us need to put ourselves out there and have that one-on-one, face-to-face, true human interaction. Some of the best conversations have nothing to do with work, have nothing to do with business. You're just being people. And I love the fact that you're mentioning that. I do want to ask you a question, and this is just kind of off the cuff here going into this, so not throwing any zingers, but for everybody who's watching or listening to that, and a lot of us know we should be doing more networking. A lot of us know that we should be reaching out more. I don't know if it's fear of rejection or, we just don't want to go that way, but do you have any thoughts or advice to anybody who's, engaging with this content saying, hey, you know what, I want to reach out to more people. How is Kayla doing it? Like, how are you reaching out to other professionals or getting involved and having those cups of coffee?
It's funny, many ways, actually. If you get out to events, I volunteer with Homeward Animal Shelter here in Fargo, or
cool.
I play a ton of volleyball. And so I see other teams and referees. And so once you start to kind of get out in natural settings, you kind of are like, oh, hey, you're in real estate. It just flows naturally. Sometimes you have to just send an email or send a text or just put yourself out there. It might come off kind of not as organic as the other way, but just shoot someone a message. What's the worst that can happen? They don't respond or they say no. And it's really funny. I thought about this the other day. I try to, as you know, we met on LinkedIn, right? Is that how? So it was putting myself out there on social media platforms. I want to be in the consideration set of people. When people think mortgage, I want them to think of Kayla Kallander, TCF Home Loans. And so I was putting myself out there with posts and sharing things, and not just mortgage related items, but quotes. And I actually have connected with a lot of people on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, just with general things we have in common. And so a lot of it has been organic.
Okay. But I love the fact that, and that's huge advice, and everybody who's watching or listening, take huge notes, because that you need to be on it and you need to reach out. And I love what you said. What's the worst case? They say no. They ignore you. I mean, that's the worst case. You got to put yourself out there. We are guilty by association. We're the sum of all parts who are around us, our friends, our family, colleagues. I mean, put people who can help you grow and learn and educate. And, don't be afraid to put yourself on social media. And I think that, again, that's how we met. And I think that's fantastic, right? I mean, who would have thought? The biggest small world now, so it's, But that's really, really great advice. And I think that, more people are a little bit hesitant to get involved, and just know that there are true professionals that are really taking their business to another level because they're using these tools, but you're reaching out physically, digitally. I mean, there's so many different ways. So Kayla, huge, huge advice. I mean, I love that. Yeah, no, this is awesome. This is awesome. So I want to go into the next question. And this is the tricky part of this particular interview and series. It's the challenge question. So I always lead into it this way, because at the end of the day, we all have challenges. We all have struggles, hardships, whether it's in the past, now, or in the future. We all deal with it. But I really believe it's not so much what happens, but how we respond and what we learn from it, what we can share. So Kayla, if you're comfortable sharing something that you overcame, became stronger because of it, what's that challenge look like for you?
Well, it's funny that you say we all have challenges, because it hit me only a couple years ago that everybody has challenges. And it's accepting that. We don't see people posting about their addictions or their failures or the struggles they endured to get where they're at. And I think a lot of people compare themselves to what they see in people's highlight reels on social media.
Well said.
So one thing for me was realizing, you have those days where you're like, oh gosh, why me? Or why did this happen? And for me, it was really realizing everybody has these challenges. And it's like you said, it's how you overcome them. And, going back to, actually, it's funny you said this, it's when you reach out to people for those meetings, for example, one thing that was a challenge that I had to sit back and just think about a little more, was that you are not for everyone, and everyone isn't for you. In Fargo, I think it's nearly 1,000 realtors, and there are a ton of amazing lenders and banks. And one thing that I had just kind of step back and analyze a bit was that I would get hurt. My feelings would be hurt if someone didn't use me as a mortgage lender. Wow. And I'm like, but I'm so good at this, and I really try, and I'll work hard. But at the same time, I have to realize that it's the client's choice. And they might have a relative or a bank that they've been loyal to. And for me, it was to get over the fact that, that client might not be for me. And that it's not rejection. It's truly just, maybe it's a better fit. And that took me a while to really just be okay with. Wow. And I've had conversations with other lenders, builders, and realtors, and talked about the same things. And they're like, yeah, we worked with this client for so long, and then they end up going with, someone else. And, we're all at a point, I feel like, my realtor friends and I, that, then that's not for me, and that's for their best interest. So that's probably the professional challenge that I've had to really just stop, think about, and be okay with. Wow. And kind of on a personal level, I think a lot of the struggles we go through them so we can help others. And the challenges that I've been through, I can't even say how much my relationships with my sisters, again, youngest of 6, I've got a lot of sisters. My relationships with my sisters, my friends, have become so much stronger, because when you're vulnerable with somebody and you open up and they see exactly what you're going through, it allows them to do the same. And it's so amazing to see how that bond becomes so much better, because you're now both sharing your deepest challenges. And so for me, the challenges have, kind of like a bow and arrow, you have to come back before you can propel forward. And the challenges I've endured have really done that. And I'm grateful for those relationships that have come so close.
Wow. I mean, Kayla, I can't thank you enough for sharing that. It's not easy to, just be vulnerable and air your stuff out to everybody here. I want to go back into, a portion that you addressed right off the bat was, really understand that we don't all get along, and that's okay. It's trying not to take that on a personal note as a business professional. It's tough. And I know that a lot of us that are watching or listening to this right now, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm there right now. Or yeah, I got over that. My life was so much better. It's not that you don't care. It's you just realize at a certain point in your life that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. And I'm trying to help people and grow and partner together, but we're not all going to get along, and that's all right. There's different flavors for everything. And but I think that's really, really good note taking for everybody who's watching or listening to this is don't be so concerned about pleasing everyone. Just be genuine, be real in who you are. The right people will come into your life, and the people who aren't, they'll go. There's plenty of business. There's plenty of relationships to have. So, but that's not easy to say because again, that's showing vulnerability. Right. When you're talking about on the personal side, and I firmly agree with that as you're doing now, when you open up and you show that, hey, I am a person just like everybody else, and we all have struggles and go through, but relying on good friends and good family, it brings bonds so much closer. And I think the more open we are with sharing what we've been through with others, maybe they're not friends and family, maybe they're total strangers. You just don't know how you're going to impact somebody else, make somebody else feel better, because a lot of us feel I'm the only one dealing with this right now and I'm alone. And when they hear somebody else, it helps, you know? So I appreciate everything you said there. I thought it was perfect.
Thank you.
So, for sure. But again, thank you for sharing. You know, that particular. I want to go on to a slightly softer question, if that's all right. So we made it through that one, but this is actually one of my favorite questions. This is the travel back in time question. So no one has a crystal ball, no one has a time machine, but at the end of the day, if you could go back, Kayla, and give your younger self a piece of advice or two, what would you say to young Kayla?
Oh, young Kayla, how I wish I could go back. But I feel like it's made me who I am today. My poor mother, I was such a worrier when I was younger. I would worry about everything all the time, and I still do. And I've gotten to a point where that's what I would go back to little Kayla and say, stop worrying. And instead have a mechanism in place to combat worrying, because we all worry, right?
Everybody.
We do. And it's such a waste of precious energy. And that was something I always did up until probably, I'm going to be honest, like 6 months ago. So what I've started doing and did is I would assume the worst that could happen. And I would work my way back from that. So, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And then, okay, how am I going to deal with that? What am I going to do if that does happen? And then you have a game plan in place, and then you can just put the worrying aside. Wow. And for me, that's what I would say is a lot of precious, soul wasted on just worrying, and have a game plan instead.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, truly, not just for young Kayla, but everybody, myself included, who's watching or listening. And I love the thought process of reverse engineering that. What is the worst case scenario? What does this really look like? Where's my anxiety lie? I think a lot of it from that message that I'm taking away, and hopefully the audiences as well, is the fear of some of the unknown, right? And our clients deal with that every day. We deal with that in so many different portions of our lives. But if you just take some time and say, what am I really worrying about? And here are the steps that I need to take, reverse engineering to see what the outcome would be, and say, you know what, that's really not that bad. And even if I have to deal with this pain, at least I know that it's coming. I know that these things, and I know how to position. Planning, I love that. I think that's invaluable. That's huge. That's huge stuff.
It works most of the time. Sometimes I still worry, but for the most part, it really helps. So
it doesn't come across. The strength is there, Kayla. It's really good. This is awesome. So that's great advice. I do want to go on to another really, really crowd favorite when it comes down to this, and this is the feeding of the mind question. So I always lead into it with books, podcasts, or influencers. The viewers of the show, they want to know what the Titans are doing to grow their minds, what they're really feeding their minds. So what's that look like for you, Kayla?
We're in a world now where it's so easy to listen and read self-help books and magazines and podcasts. And we have so much free education and resources at our fingertips. And I really started digging into that as soon as I could. What I personally do is I enjoy being up before the rest of the world. I get up early. Anyone that, knows me or, sees my Instagram or Facebook, you see I'm up at 4:30 most days, and there's something about just being up before the rest of the world. And I read my devotional, I have a cup of coffee or a pre-workout depending upon, and I work out. I'll go for a run outside. I'll work out. I have a gym at home. I'll basically do those three things, and sets the tone for my day.
Wow.
And while I'm doing that, I watch a lot of Joyce Meyer,
Okay.
and I listen to her podcast. So that's always in the mornings. And then as far as podcasts go, some of the ones that Real Estate Titans, of course.
Oh gosh, I appreciate
of course.
I do, Kayla. I do.
Very, very similar to like Tony Robbins, like his podcast. Something that really just gets me excited and to find my why and why I'm living. That would be, those two are probably my go-tos. Jenna Kutcher, Emily Frisella. Those are two great podcasts. They've got a lot of good information out there. Depending upon your industry, you can really take a lot out of those no matter what industry you're in.
Okay.
Some of the other ones, Jen DePlessis, and I saw you had her on Real Estate Titans as well.
Yes.
So those are probably the podcasts that I listen to. But for books, I am the type of person that gets out a highlighter and highlights. So I don't do a ton of Audible, but the books I have, I highlight because I keep them on my desk or my nightstand, and I open it and reference it so often. The book that really I feel like was the best for me was You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. So
cool.
That was a huge, huge book for me, and I've read it probably 3 times now.
Wow.
The Universe Has Your Back. That's more about just kind of what you put out in the world and just having faith and realizing that it's going to be okay. That was a good one. Anybody could read that.
Mm-hmm.
I hopped on the Girl Wash Your Face bandwagon, but it was a great bandwagon to be on because she had some great points, some excellent points.
Love it.
Think and Grow Rich. So that's another that if you're looking at kind of having something to inspire you a little bit, just to push you, that was another one that I really enjoyed.
That's a great one.
So those are probably the top books I've read that I think anybody could relate to.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and there's a great lineup of books and podcasts, and just so everybody knows, as always, I'm going to have links in the comments down below so that you can follow and feed your mind the same way that Kayla's doing. And I highly, highly recommend everybody to follow Kayla, take a look at, different websites, social media, all those different things. Great content. You can really get to know her further going through. But Kayla, was there any other ones? I didn't mean to cut you off short.
Oh gosh, no, not at all. I have a ton on my podcast and books on my to-read list, but I think those are the ones that I'm personally getting a lot out of.
Cool. Love it. And again, I'll have those linked below. I mean, Kayla, this has been chock full of just really great information, huge takeaways, monstrous advice all the way through, really for people to grow and scale their business and really just look at their life, and improve. And that's what really this is all about. And I feel like we got to get to know you a little bit better, which was awesome. It was such a great adventure. But I want to finish this up with one final question. And that ends up being the quote or mantra that you live by that sums you up as a person, as a professional. What's that look like for Kayla Kallander?
I actually probably have about 100 of them highlighted and written all over my passion planner, but because I think there's lots of quotes that can help you throughout your day. But I think two that I really just always try to keep top of mind, because no matter what my situation, no matter if I'm doing great or terrible that day, they help me. And the first one is, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor.
Wow.
And it's so true. And the things that you go through, hopefully you grow through. I mean, you learn quite a bit by the challenging times. Like I told you about, those challenging times hopefully propel you so much further forward. And so that quote I say often. And then my other one that I actually had heard this about a year or two ago, and it just resonated quite deeply with me, was, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. And in a world where there's so much negativity, think if we all just gave a little bit more to each other, or just you did something for someone each day. And if we all did that, how much better would our lives and this world be?
I don't think anybody could have said that any better, Kayla. I mean, I think that's beautiful. It's so honest and genuine, and it's from the heart. And I think that really sums you up perfectly, in my opinion. I think this is awesome. I want to thank you again so much for taking the time. You are an official Real Estate Titan. I want to digitally shake your hand, I guess. But yeah, it's just been an honor. And everybody out there, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks so much, as always, for your time and attention, your love and support. If you like what we're doing here with Real Estate Titans, please don't forget to like the Facebook page, subscribe to YouTube, and take a listen on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Podcast. As always, every Friday and Tuesday afternoon, different Titan, different location. We'll catch everybody on the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care.